Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you a HEXBLADE Warlock multiclass with the Way of the Shadow Monk, which is a surprisingly very powerful multiclass in Baldur's Gate 3, as we can give ourselves the ability to see in darkness, thrive in it, and make a lot of powerful attacks with Shadow Blade, which is a new spell introduced in patch 8 Baldur's Gate 3. Now for this, we're going to start off with Eldritch Blast and Booming Blade here, and for our subclass we'll start with the HEXBLADE Warlock, because this has the strongest start in the game. We also get the Shield spell and the Wrathful Smite. I would recommend taking Shield just for a bit of extra survivability early game. Now, we're actually going to not have to build around Wisdom, as that doesn't really actually give us much benefit because we get medium armor, so we do get a few different options that we can utilize there. You could also go with clothing options. I'll give you a few different recommendations you could go with, but we're going 16 Dexterity, 14 Constitution, 10 Intelligence and Wisdom, and 16 Charisma. Now, we can also add in a single level of Barbarian to get Constitution-based armor class and use the Constitution Amulet. So late game, you'd actually want to dump your Constitution and go all in on Wisdom. But early game, we can just go with something like this. So, yeah, you can swap around Wisdom or the Constitution there as you get to the late game. But the thing with the Constitution is we can add a single level of the... If you wanted to wear clothing, you can add a single level of the Barbarian, and it'll give you a +6 to your armor class, which is really nice in clothing. But with this, we're going to start level 2. We get ourselves the Eldritch Invocations and spells. I would recommend getting Hex, because that's pretty good early game damage, and the Hellish Rebuke. For the invocations, Agonizing Blast and Repelling Blast, great early game. We don't get Darkness until a little bit later on, but Devil's Sight's going to allow us to camp out in our darkness and become very, very scary. Now, at the next level, we're going to take Shadow Blade here, which is going to be a big benefit to us. And we get to take a Pack Boon, which I'd recommend taking Pack of the Blade, because then we can stack and get 2 attacks on top of the attack we get per action, as this can combine with the Monk's extra attack. Now for the next cantrip, Bone Chill's not bad, and for the spells, at this point you can take Darkness, as this is going to be very effective for hiding out in. Next level we can actually get the ability to see in it. And for our ability score, or for our feat, I'd recommend an ability score improvement. Boosting Charisma will give us better weapon attack rolls, so that works well. This is kind of like a ninja, because you can use a sword with this, and it actually works very well. At level 5, we get our Deepen Pack, giving us an extra attack, and we get to take another spell. Hunger of Hadar is really nice, but I also like Hold Person, so we could go back and take that, but Hunger of Hadar just fits pretty well thematically. And we're going to go with the Devil's Sight, which gives us the ability to see in magical darkness, which is actually going to be very powerful for us. We could go to level 6 here, but I think at this point it's actually best to add in the Monk. This gives us the Flurry of Blows bonus action ability. We get Unarmored Defense, which adds our Wisdom modifier to armor class. We're not wearing armor, but we can wear medium armor. Then we also get our punching attacks here, so which are pretty fun. We get nice use for our bonus action, which the Warlock doesn't always have. But more bonus action abilities here with Patient Defense and the Step of the Wind. But once we get to level 3, we get to choose our subclass. And here, the Way of the Drunken Master, as fun as it is, it's not as strong as going the Way of the Shadow, which gives us another darkness spell here. Dark Vision, we get Silence, we get Pass Without Trace, which is a concentration that can give us +10 to stealth checks. Pretty useful to a couple areas of the game. And we also get the Shadow Arts Hide, but we also get Minor Illusion as a cantrip. Now, what's good about the Way of the Shadow is we get a teleport here eventually. So at level 4, we get ourselves the Slow Fall, Resistance to Fall damage, and at this point, I think it's best to actually go with these, go with Tavern Brawler here, because we can do punching attacks that are going to massively do damage. This is if you want to use Strength Potions. Otherwise, take your Charisma up to 20. This is going to be the best way if you don't want to use Strength Potions. And if you do want to use Strength Potions, Tavern Brawler makes this pretty crazy. You could have also added like an extra point to one of these stats, but we're going to use Strength Potions and the Constitution Amulet, so it doesn't really matter a whole lot there. At level 5, we get our extra attack, we get the Stunning Strikes, and we get the Cloak of Shadows, turn invisible when you're obscured. So that's pretty nice there. And then once we get to level 6, we get our Shadow Step. Teleport from shadow to shadow. Afterwards, you have advantage on your next melee attack roll. This doesn't cost key points or cost us any spell slots. This is basically a free Misty Step to our darkness, and we get advantage on attack roll afterwards. So that's really nice. And then we also get our Key Empowered Strike, so we overcome resistance to physical damage types. But we could stay here, giving ourselves Charmed. If you're Charmed or Frightened, you can cast Stillness of Mind to get rid of the Charm or Frightened. And Evasion, which lets you take half damage from all dexterity saves. So Fireball will give you half damage now, and then and no damage if you succeed on the check. Or we can stay here and get the Accursed Spectre. So we can go 6/6 or 7/5. With the 6/6, we get the Accursed Spectre, which is a nice summon that we can get if we kill someone that has our Hexblade's curse applied to them. And we can also take a counter spell or fear for our spells, but just mind you, we do have some concentration, so even something like Shatter can be okay, or Misty Step where we really need extra survivability. And even mirror image is kind of nice. It gives you that extra 9 armor class, which can make us very tanky actually. So that's another good choice that we can go with. Now, as far as gear options go, there's a few great ones that we can go with. Also, I did mention, but again, you can take a single level. If you didn't want to take the Accursed Spectre, you could take a single level of the Barbarian and wear clothing. So for gear, we get ourselves a nice 26 armor class here. We can benefit from wearing a shield, which is kind of funny. Typically, you don't get the defense from that. But if we went the Barbarian, we would have went with something like the Vest of Soul Rejuvenation, giving us +2 armor class, and we get an unarmed attack at an attacker that misses us. This would put our armor class up pretty high as well. We'd actually get a bit of a higher armor class, but at the same time, you wouldn't get the Accursed Spectre. So it's up to you what you prefer. So the Mask of Soul Perception will give us a bonus to our attack rolls. We're not going to miss with that. Cloak Protection gives us better armor class. Our Armor of Agility is stealthy, but also gives us a big armor class. Gloves of Soul Catching, our unarmed attacks do additional 1 to 10 force damage. You can take the Dexterity Gloves early game, and there's a bunch of other ones that do like cold damage and a variety of different damage types, so you could go with those as well. Or if you want to go with no armor, no armor and no shield, you can do Bracer Defense, but any of the gloves that add damage are nice too. Evasive Shoes for +1 armor class. We also got ourselves Amulet of Greater Health to set our Constitution to give us 135 health. Killer Sweeter for a free crit and the Ring of Protection, and also Hellrider Longbow. I went with the Crimson Mischief, but early game, you go with the best available dagger. If you got the Knife of the Underbound King, this actually works best early game. And this gives us the Shadow Blade, which we actually will also get from the actual Shadow Blade. So we got on our spell list here, we got an actual Shadow Blade, which is upcast. This will give it additional damage too, which is nice. So that's one of our spells there. So we can apply the Shadow Blade to our main hand and then go with the shield again if you wanted to have that shield there. So that does give us a 26 armor class. So pretty effective. The Shadow Blade looks really cool too and does a lot of damage. And once we have our Shadow Blade, we want to use the Bind Hex weapon so that we have it as our hexed weapon, giving us that extra attack. So now we get our extra attacks. We want to set up darkness as much as possible. We got the Flurry of Blows for a bonus action that does a ton of damage, and that's going to be the main use for our key points is that. So we only got 7 of them. We only got 2 level 3 spell slots, so it's kind of split between the middle. But the nice thing is we have 3 attacks and a bonus action powerhouse of a punch with the Flurry of Blows. That's why we want to take the Tavern Brawler there. If we went with an increase of dexterity, we would have got our armor class up to 27, which is nice. And they also got the Stunning Strikes, which can stun targets. But the cool thing is there's a melee version of this, possibly stunning the target and doing that 3d8 plus 4 psychic damage. On top of this, if you have the Resonance Stone, this is going to double all psychic damage, so we can actually hit extremely hard, and I'll show you what this ends up looking like in combat. So I applied haste to my character, and then we can go ahead with a Mirror Image, which is actually going to give ourselves 37 armor class. This is actually pretty wild. We're very defensive with this. Even if we're wearing medium armor, it's kind of funny how that works. But then after that, you want to go ahead and give yourself a long rest, or a short rest, because that'll give us our spell slots back, and we get to keep all of our bonuses from haste and the armor class, or from the Mirror Image as well. And then we go back in. So that's kind of, if you know you're getting into a combat encounter, you can apply and get yourself at 37 armor class, which is just ridiculous in how powerful you get. And then our first maneuver that we want to do is typically setting up our darkness. So we got the Shadow Arts darkness, and then we also have the spell version of it. I'm not sure. Yeah, there's a spell version. If you play as a drow, you also get another version. So all 3 of them work great. Now, darkness is where the Shadow Monk really thrives. It's a big core function of it, same as going with a, same as playing as a Warlock. Playing in the darkness is very, very effective, and it'll help you out with survivability. So we can go ahead and then camp out in our darkness here. So here we are camped out in our darkness. We can just go ahead. Since our main attacks do upwards of 28 damage, which is going to be doubled, you'll see here we can actually just one-shot people with our advantage coming out of the darkness there, since we're heavily obscured. Yeah, this is going to probably hit pretty hard. Oh, it wasn't too hard, but we applied the Hexblade's Curse, so that's perfect, because then we'll take them out with our next attack here. And then we can raise the Accursed Spectre, which is perfect. So we'll go ahead applying this. So we now have our little helper here, which is really nice. And what's cool is we have the Deep Impact extra attack, so then we can go ahead and give ourselves another attack. And yeah, 76 on that hit. That is crazy. So very powerful. And then we can go ahead with our crazy bonus action ability, Flurry of Blows. It's probably best to go on a target that's not almost out of health, but bonk. 20, 19, 25, 7, 13. Pretty crazy damage there. And then we still have action for 3 more attacks. So we can go ahead with just an attack on this target. We'll probably finish them all off on these. 40 damage with that, and then 95 damage with that. And then on top of that, you have your deepen pack, so you can do a bow attack too if you wanted to go full crazy, and apply fairy fire if you got the Hellrider longbow. And you'd want to get back to your darkness if at all possible. We could also go with the soul snare there to give ourselves a little bit extra healing. I'm not going to go back to darkness just yet, just to show off that we still are pretty defensive. The nice thing with darkness too is it cuts line of sight. So anytime that you can find a way to abuse that, like right here, this is just a cut point, he can still see through this area here. He had to run to the side there to attack our Cursed Spectre, which is fine. They're nice for tanking. So whenever you apply the Hexblade's Curse on an enemy, which we did with our multiple weapon attacks, it's just going to tank for us, which is actually awesome. So I'll skip Shadowheart's turn there. We just had to watch out for any spellcasters, but the beautiful thing about darkness is it makes the enemy AI work a little weird. So they just ran through, they're in the darkness there. They did a throwing attack that pushed them, which is weird. They typically, if you're in darkness, they can only do throwing attacks. It's the way that the AI works in Baldur's Gate 3. They can't do melee or bow attacks, but they can actually throw, which is kind of funny. It's not optimal for them to do throwing attacks, but sometimes they still will. It's weird. It's their choice, but the darkness does mess with that. And then our Cursed Spectre can do the Devour Soul and Pluck Soul, so they saved on it, but it can do a little extra necrotic damage. And if you're nearby your Spectre, it can do a special attack as well. Or if you have the Shadow Magic Dog, it can also do that too. So with that, we now have a target for us to go ahead and attack, so we'll go behind them there. And honestly, just main weapon attacks are pretty strong. So yeah, 68 on that. It's pretty powerful with the Cursed Spectre there as well. And then we have our next target. Spellcasters are priority for us, so we want to go around poking them with our sword. We're now in darkness, so we have advantage. 52 on that single strike. As I mentioned, this is pretty crazy. And then we can go ahead with another attack here. 99% hit chance. Yeah, we're not missing. And then we also get ourselves an extra bonus action punching attack there too. So yeah, there's just so much you can do with this. And then for our next action, if we can get close, unfortunately I can't get too close there, you can just go with a regular old Eldritch Blast. If you're close enough, Flurry of Blows again, best bonus action ability. 3 attacks plus a Flurry of Blows is absolutely absurd, the amount of damage that you can do. But what's nice is we got advantage on our Eldritch Blast as well from that, so that's pretty cool too. And then with our bonus action, we can apply the Hexblade's Curse on another target, which is just fantastic. So we'll just roll with that there. We still have a very high armor class of 34. We only lost 3 from the one attack that they sent towards us. We're not getting hit often with that. The other thing, again, the Cursed Spectres will basically tank for you. So yeah, you can just hide out in the darkness. They'll take all the beating for us. Ideally, they'll be in the darkness too to kind of mess with the enemy. But yeah, it's super effective for what it can do. And we'll just see what it freely chooses to do. It's not doing anything, which is fine. So we'll just camp out right here and hope for the best. So they aren't coming towards us, which is kind of unfortunate because I can't get actually that close, but we attack with advantage and it hits hard. So we can do our range attacks from here. Since we have the Shadow Blade, it gives advantage on all of our attacks. So we're going to have a higher critical hit chance. We're going to have a higher hit chance in general. And then also our Eldritch Blast. So oddly enough, no advantage there, but that was enough to take out that target. And I'm going to try and kite the enemy towards us so we can just fly down here. Again, bonus action would be priority to use the Flurry of Blows there because that's just going to be absurd amounts of damage. It's just going to attack our Spectre, which is fine because it took it out. And then with that, it's going to run into our darkness. That's perfect because then I can go up and go in for the kill. So Shadow Blade being very powerful. I didn't even mention, but Booming Blade is typically what you want to do in your first action because you can do Booming Blade per action. So I completely forgot to mention that. 68, 14, 4. That is a lot of damage. So the Shadow Magic Sorcerer getting the Shadow Monk with the Warlock, very powerful combination. 3 attacks plus Flurry of Blows, having the potential to do upwards of 64 damage on the bonus action, and then your main attacks doing upwards of 28. However, that 28 is actually doubled, so that's almost a 60 damage on a main attack. And then with Booming Blade, even further more of the damage. You got lots of options. You got Eldritch Blast. This is a fun combination. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Have yourself a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.